In 2019, a mechanic in Billings, Montana, posted a photo online of the underside of a 1997 Chevy pickup, 22 years old, driven through brutal Montana winters, road salt caked on every season, and the frame looked like it had just rolled off the factory floor. No professional undercoating, no expensive dealership treatment, just a thin, dark blue-black layer of something most people have never heard of. His secret cost him $3. $3 for a powder you can buy at a grocery store. $3 to mix with warm water in a plastic bucket. $3 to brush onto rusted steel and watch the corrosion change in real time into a permanent, waterproof, paintable shield. No sanding down to bare metal. No grinding. No professional equipment. According to a 2021 study by AOA, the average cost to repair rust damage on a vehicle runs between $200 and $1,500, depending on how bad it is and where it's located. $3 versus $1,500. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what this compound is, why it works, and how to apply it step by step with what you already have at home. This is not new technology. The United States military used this exact chemistry to protect tanks, rifles, and landing craft during World War II. The British Royal Navy documented it in the 1850s. Roman legionnaires were treating their weapons with it 2,000 years ago. And if you walk into any hardware store right now, pick up a bottle of Rust Converter, one of those $15 to $30 bottles with aggressive branding from companies like Rust-Oleum, and flip it around to read the safety data sheet, you will find the same compound listed as the primary active ingredient. They did not stop using it because it failed. They repackaged it, marked it up tenfold, and made sure you would never recognize the original. The compound is tannic acid, a naturally occurring powder found in oak bark, tea leaves, chestnut wood, grape seeds, and dozens of other plant sources. And the story of how humanity discovered it is one of the most fascinating cases of convergent chemistry in recorded history. 1,400 years before the first industrial factory ever opened, leather workers in ancient Rome stumbled onto something extraordinary. They were soaking raw animal hides in water filled with crushed oak bark, the ancient tanning process that gave us the word tanning itself. Every leather workshop across the Roman Empire used massive stone vats filled with this dark, strong-smelling brown liquid. But something unexpected kept happening inside those vats. Every iron tool that accidentally touched the tanning solution simply stopped corroding. Iron knives that would normally rust within days in the humid Roman air stayed clean and razor-sharp for months after a single soak. Iron buckles dropped into the vats by clumsy apprentices came out coated in a thin, dark protective film that fiercely resisted both water and salt air. The tanners told the blacksmiths. The blacksmiths told the armorers. And the armorers told the generals. By the 2nd century, Roman legionnaires were actively treating their iron weapons with concentrated oak bark extracts before long campaigns into the damp forests of Gaul and Germany. Military blacksmiths at frontier outposts soaked chainmail in tannin baths after every river crossing and rainstorm. Garrison records carved into wooden tablets at Vindolanda, a Roman fort near Hadrian's Wall, explicitly reference iron preservation baths using bark solutions. A 2,000-year-old military maintenance routine describing the exact same chemistry that can save a modern truck frame today. And Rome was not alone. On the opposite side of the planet, completely independent cultures arrived at the exact same answer. In feudal Japan, swordsmiths making a katana faced a specific problem. The razor-sharp cutting edge was hard, high-carbon steel, but the spine was softer, more flexible iron, extremely vulnerable to Japan's subtropical humidity. An untreated blade core could develop rust spots within weeks. The solution was kakishibu, fermented persimmon juice, a tannin-rich liquid carefully brushed onto the soft iron core just before the final clay tempering process. The tannins bonded with the iron at the molecular level, creating a stable protective layer, so effective and so closely guarded that specific kakishibu formulations used by different swordsmithing schools became trade secrets passed only from master to apprentice. The Yoruba ironworkers of West Africa, master metallurgists smelting and forging iron since at least 500 BC, faced 6 months of tropical monsoon with humidity so intense that unprotected iron could develop visible rust overnight. Their answer came from the forest. tannin extracts pulled from shea bark and acacia pods, painted onto hoe blades, machetes, and agricultural tools before the rainy season. Persian metalworkers in Isfahan used crushed pomegranate rind, over 28% tannic acid by weight, to protect their legendary sword blades from desert humidity. Deep in South America, Mapuche craftsmen used the extract of the quebracho tree, one of the most tannin-dense woods on Earth, to preserve iron tools. 5 continents, dozens of cultures, thousands of years apart. Every single one arrived at the same conclusion. This is not folklore. This is the same molecular truth discovered independently through observation, necessity, and generational wisdom. In 1813, French chemist Michel-Eugène Chevreul isolated tannic acid as a pure compound for the first time in recorded history and documented its reaction with iron oxide. And the chemistry he described is elegant. Tannic acid reacts aggressively with iron 3 oxide, the flaky orange destructive compound we call rust, and converts it into a completely different substance called iron 3 tannate, also known as ferric tannate. Iron tannate is a dark blue-black compound that is completely insoluble in water. It does not flake. It does not spread. It does not weaken the underlying metal. And it bonds to the steel surface at the molecular level, permanently. Here is the distinction that matters. This is a chemical conversion, not a surface coating. A traditional coating sits on top of the rust like a bandage. Eventually, moisture finds a microscopic scratch, the coating lifts, and the rust underneath keeps spreading. A conversion transforms the rust itself into the protective barrier. The existing corrosion, the very thing destroying your metal, becomes the shield that protects it. The disease becomes the cure. The British Royal Navy understood this in 1850 when they began formal testing of tannic acid solutions on the iron hulls of warships docked at Portsmouth Harbor. Ships treated with tannin solutions showed significantly less hull corrosion over a 5-year period compared to identical ships treated with standard lead-based paints, which were far more toxic and far more expensive. But the real proving ground came during World War II. When the war erupted in 1939, rust became a full-scale military emergency. Sherman tanks shipped across the damp, salty Atlantic arrived in North Africa with corroded track links and seized turret rings. Rifles stored in the suffocating humidity of Pacific Islands jammed shut within weeks as tropical moisture ate through standard oil coatings. Every piece of corroded equipment was a soldier who could not fight, a vehicle that could not move, a weapon that could not fire. In 1941, the United States War Department launched a materials preservation research program at the Aberdeen Proving Ground in Maryland. Researchers tested over 200 different anti-corrosion compounds on bare steel panels inside accelerated salt spray chambers, essentially simulating years of harsh environmental exposure in a matter of weeks. The results, declassified in 1947, were clear. A 4% solution of tannic acid applied to pre-rusted steel panels withstood over 1,000 hours of continuous salt spray without failure. The best-performing synthetic competitor broke down at roughly 600 hours. The military's response was immediate. Procurement officers began ordering tannic acid in bulk for depots across 3 theaters of war: Jeep chassis, ammunition cans, rifle barrels, steel bridge components, landing craft hinges, all treated with the same simple natural compound that Roman blacksmiths had discovered in their tanning vats 2,000 years earlier. The most powerful military machine in history, fighting a war that would determine the fate of civilization, chose a $3 plant extract over every expensive synthetic alternative the chemical industry could offer. And it was not a close call. So why have most people never heard of this? The answer is painfully simple. After 1945, companies like DuPont had spent the war years investing heavily in manufacturing facilities for synthetic, petroleum-based primers and rust inhibitors. They had built sales teams, distribution networks, and marketing departments around products that cost 10 to 50 times more than natural tannic acid. And tannic acid cannot be patented. It is a naturally occurring compound. You cannot build a subscription business around a powder that costs less than a fast food meal. You cannot create a service franchise empire selling a treatment anyone can apply with a foam brush in their driveway. And you certainly cannot justify a $500 dealership rust protection package when the active ingredient can be brewed from a box of black tea bags. So the industry did what industries do when a cheap natural solution threatens an expensive revenue stream. They repackaged it. Those rust converter products at every hardware store, the $15 to $30 bottles from brands like Rust-Oleum and others, pull up the safety data sheet on virtually any major brand, and you will find tannic acid listed as the primary active ingredient. They take $3 worth of naturally occurring powder, dissolve it in solvents, pour it into a branded bottle, and sell it back at 10 to 15 times its actual cost. After 1978, product reformulation guidelines allowed manufacturers to list active ingredients under fancy trade names. Simple tannic acid became proprietary rust conversion compound or stabilized oxide modification technology. Same ancient molecule. New vocabulary, dramatically higher price. The global automotive rust-proofing market was valued at approximately $1.1 billion in 2021 and is expected to reach about $1.5 billion by 2026, growing at 5% per year according to MarketWatch. The U.S. auto parts aftermarket generates over $300 billion in annual revenue. Corrosion-related repairs account for roughly 30% of that total. Around $90 billion a year flowing out of people's pockets because most have never been told that the permanent fix costs $3.45. Here is the complete method step by step. Step 1. Purchase food-grade tannic acid powder. You can find it at grocery stores, health food suppliers, or online bulk retailers. A 100-gram bag costs between $3 and $5 and is enough to treat approximately 40 square feet of heavily rusted surface. That's an entire full-size truck frame with powder to spare. Step 2. Measure 4 grams of powder and dissolve it into 100 milliliters of warm water. Stir gently until it's fully dissolved. The liquid should turn the deep, rich color of strong black tea. Step 3. Take a wire brush or coarse steel wool and scrub the rusted surface briefly, only enough to knock off loose flaking material. You do not need to sand down to bare shiny metal. The solution actually needs the existing rust to work. It converts the corrosion rather than requiring its removal. Step 4. Apply the solution evenly across the rusted area using a foam brush, a cotton rag, or a spray bottle. Within 10 to 15 minutes, the rust visibly changes color, shifting from sickly orange-brown to a dense dark blue-black. That color change is the molecular conversion happening in real time. Iron 3 oxide is becoming iron 3 tannate right before your eyes. Let the surface air dry completely, about 2 to 4 hours depending on temperature and humidity, then apply a second coat. 2 coats ensure maximum conversion depth and thorough protection. After the second coat cures, the surface is permanently stabilized and ready for any top coat. Paint, oil, wax, rubberized undercoating, or polyurethane. The converted iron tannate surface actually bonds more effectively to paint and top coats than perfectly bare polished steel. For camp tools, axes, knives, and hatchets, apply the conversion solution, then finish with a thin coat of boiled linseed oil or melted beeswax. For vehicle frames and undercarriages, convert the rust, then follow with rubberized spray or a film of used motor oil. For cast iron cookware, apply a light coat to rust spots, let it convert, wash it off, and re-season in the oven as normal. 100 grams of this powder, enough to treat an entire full-size truck frame, a complete set of outdoor tools, and a full season of cast iron maintenance. Total cost, $3 and about 45 minutes. The same chemistry that protected Roman swords in the forests of Gaul, that preserved Japanese katanas through subtropical monsoons, that shielded American tanks crossing the Atlantic. Available right now for the price of a cup of coffee to anyone willing to pick up a foam brush and do it themselves.